This is problem number 8 on the practice problems for quest number 1. Peter has taken out a loan to buy a new car. The graph shows the total amount A that he still needs to pay off in dollars in terms of the time T in years since he bought the car. Part A, find the slope of the line. Pay attention to the scales on the axes. Okay, so in order to find slope, we're going to need 2 points. Now you can pick any 2 points that are on this line that you want. But I caution you, if you pick a point like that, it's going to be difficult or impossible to figure out what these numbers are. So you don't want to actually just pick any points on the line. You want to pick points whose coordinates you can figure out. So for example, you could maybe pick this one and say, okay, I think that right there is in the middle of this line and this line. I'd caution you against doing that too, because at this stage, only looking at that point, there's no way to know if it's perfectly in the middle. So you really want to pick points that you can readily identify the coordinates. So for example, that point right there, I can easily identify the coordinates because that point is on the diagonal line, but it's also on the grid. And another point that I can find is right here. So we're looking for points that are on the grid. There's a third one down there. So pick any pair of those points. I'll pick the last 2 points, but it makes no difference. So the coordinates of the 2 points I'm going to pick are 5, 0 and 3, 6,000. And we know in order to find the slope, well, first I'll use the letter. What letter have we been using for slope? It's M. And normally it's a change in y over change in x. In this case, I'll change the letters. We don't have y. We have on the vertical axis is the letter A. So this is actually a change in A over. And on the horizontal axis, it's not x, it's t. Change in A over change in t. So here are my t numbers first, and then my a numbers second. So let's just start doing this calculation. I'll put it down here, equals. So we're subtracting the a numbers, the second numbers, 0 minus 6,000, divide by, and then when you subtract the x numbers, or the t numbers in this case, make sure you subtract in the same order. I subtracted 0 minus 6,000. I better do the same direction, 5 minus 3. So altogether, that's a negative 6,000 divided by 2, which we can reduce to negative 3,000. I'll go ahead and put divide by 1 just because I want to use the 1 in part B. But that right there is the slope. Part B, explain the significance of the slope in this situation. Include units. So first thing we're going to do is include the units. So that 3,000, the 3,000 came because I subtracted 0 and 6,000. Those were both A numbers, and remember A was measured in dollars. So that negative 3,000 is actually in dollars per. And then the bottom number, 5 and 3 were both measuring time, the years. So when I subtract them, I got 2 years, and then I reduce, and I get 1 year. So when all is said and done, the bottom is years. So that says negative $3,000 per 1 year. Okay, I think we're just about there in terms of explaining the significance of that slope. For every year that passes, and then we'll get the sentence right by looking back at the beginning. It says the graph is the amount that Peter still needs to pay off. So for every year that passes, the amount that Peter still needs to pay off. And what is it doing? It's changing by negative $3,000. So it's totally fine to just say that. The amount he still needs to pay off is changing by negative $3,000. Probably a little less awkward to not say changing by a negative number, but to actually say is decreasing. By $3,000. So turning the 3,000 into a positive, the negative is incorporated in the word decreasing. So that's one sentence. There are other ways to say this. You could, for example, say that the amount Peter still needs to pay off is decreasing by $3,000 per year. Either way is fine, and I'm sure there are other variations on those sentences that are fine as well.